So I'm going to kick off the meeting, and I will move approval of the agenda. Second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays.
You've all carefully pored over the minutes of the prior meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Juan, second by Hillis. Let's open that.
The vote is open.
Minutes have been adopted. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do not.
We do not. All right, that takes us to, well, just a note, we do have a COVID-19 funds report that is in handout form only today. That takes us to communications, first of which is 25C0070. This is a communication from Council President Shipman appointing Ms. Robin Craig to serve as a member of the City of Atlanta Audit Committee. Appointment is for a term of 4 years. Is Ms. Craig here?
Move to hold. Trump was.
Okay, if
But was waiting outside.
Oh, well, let's.
well, we'll come back to her when she gets here. We also have 25C0071, communication from Mayor Dickens appointing. Oh, excellent.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's.
Are you ready for me?
We are. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Tell us a little about yourself, please.
Sorry, I had to take a little detour.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Robin Craig. I have lived in Atlanta since 2011. I moved up from Florida, but Atlanta was a home away from home for a long time. My parents moved here in '92. I'm a CPA. I have a master's degree in accounting from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I started my career at Ernst & Young working in financial auditing for 2.5 years, and then spent 27 years working for investment management firms mostly in the corporate finance area, doing systems and process improvement projects, including system implementations and things like that. But first for Franklin Templeton Investments and then for Invesco, most recently here. And ended my time with Invesco in the enterprise risk area. I've also spent a good bit of time doing community work, 17 years with the Junior League of Greater Fort Lauderdale, many of which I've spent on the board in various board positions and committee chair positions, diving deeply into a solution for Fort Lauderdale, which has actually become the standard from the state of Florida for youth transitioning out of foster care. And here in Atlanta, I have been a member of, very active member of Ribbons of Hope Invest in Women. I was the treasurer for 4 years and currently serve on the grant committee.
Well, thank you for your willingness to serve in this very important capacity. Questions?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Hillis. Let's open the vote. We're being joined by Mr. Amos.
The vote is open.
So, Ms. Noble, does this fill your last board vacancy?
Yes.
And she nods yes.
The vote is closed.
All right, thank you very much. 25C0071 is a communication from the mayor appointing Ms. Jana Edmondson Cooper, Esquire, to serve as a contract compliance hearing officer for the city of Atlanta. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Come on up. How do you pronounce your first name?
You got it right. We're already on the ball. Jana, you got it.
Jana. Well,
Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair, and to all of the committee. My name is Jana Edmondson Cooper. I'm a licensed attorney with over 15 years of diverse legal experience, including having previously served as a full-time judge, senior federal prosecutor, and a legal aid attorney. I am very humbled and grateful for the possible opportunity to serve in this capacity. I believe specifically my prior experience as a federal prosecutor prosecuting high-profile and complex labor and employment enforcement matters, including the Federal Office of Contract Compliance, which their goal, similar to the city's Office of Contract Compliance, is to ensure equity in those contracts and enforcement of equity in the awarding of those contracts. And so I did that for several years. Additionally, as a full-time judge in Georgia's third largest county, I've presided over thousands of criminal and civil cases having to move high-volume dockets. And so I'm very familiar with having to move cases and be equitable in doing so, and specifically evaluating evidence and making sure that it is evaluated in a way that is meaningful and applicable to the regulations or other controlling statutes that need be. So I believe that I can bring a lot to this role, and at the core of who I am, both personally and professionally, is a core commitment to increasing access, promoting equity, and working toward justice for all. And I look forward and hope to be able to do that in this capacity.
All right, well, thank you for wearing all the hats that you have worn, including the one you're about to put on. You're certainly well qualified, and we love having you here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Motion to approve by Juan, which I will second. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans, would you sound our first reads, please?
Item number 3 is 25-013-14, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to execute all appropriate documents that would grant a utility easement across the real property known as 175 Lakewood Way, Atlanta, Georgia, land lot 71 of the 14th District of Fulton County, Georgia, to Georgia Power Company for the purpose of installing underground power distribution facilities, waiving Real Estate and Procurement Code, Article 10, Subdivision 3, Sections 2-1571, 2-1572, 2-1574, and the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes. Item number 4, 25-013-15. An ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all appropriate documents that would grant a utility.
Is your mic out or on?
I have a green light.
Okay. Yeah.
We should really look at upgrading audio equipment in here.
Well, come on, they're what? 2-3 weeks old? What do you expect, Ellis?
I'll begin with this one. This is number 4, 25-013-15, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all appropriate that would grant a utility easement across the real property known as 215 Lakewood Way Southeast, Atlanta, land lots 71 and 90 of District 14 of Fulton County, Georgia, for two easement areas consisting of approximately 522.8 square feet and 228.3 square feet, shown in Exhibit A and also known as J.C. Burdine Neighborhood Center, to Georgia Power Company for the purpose of installing overhead power distribution facilities upon payment of $3,000. Waiving Real Estate and Procurement Code Article Subdivision, the sections listed here and for other purposes. Number 5, 25-013-16, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to convey 0.661 acres more or less of city-owned property located at the north side of Collier Drive, Northwest Atlanta, Georgia 30331, west of I-285 and north of I-20 to the Georgia Department of Transportation for the purposes of construction, maintenance, and operation of the I-285 at I-20 West Interchange Reconstruction and Widening Project, waiving any conflicting provisions of the City Code and for other purposes. 25-013-17, An ordinance by Finance Executive Committee waiving the competitive source selection provisions contained in Section 2-1187 of Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, as well as any other conflicting code provisions to authorize the mayor or his designee to extend the Third Amendment to a special on-call IT services with uwork.com Inc., DBA Covendus Technologies Inc., on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management to extend the term of the agreement 1 year effective August 12th, 2025. 11th, 2026, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $9,460,726.40. All contractor work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 7, an ordinance by Finance Executive, item number 7, 25-01318, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute change order number 5 to agreement listed here with Mythix Oracle Cloud Support with Mythix Inc. on behalf of the Department of Finance to add services related to land management, permitting, and licensing, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed blank. All contracted work we charge to the accounts listed and for other purposes.
All right, thank you. We'll take those up in our next sitting. Before we dive into the regular agenda, if you are an intern with the Department of Finance, could you please stand up?
Oh, wow.
Welcome. We'll try to get you out of here in 6-7 hours. So, Ms. Carr, could you tell us about their matriculation process? And we've been joined by Ms. Bakhtiari.
Sure. We have interns working in accounting and finance and the controller's office, the treasury office, as well as the Office of Revenue. We do this every summer. We rotate the interns to give them an opportunity to have a real wide experience in accounting. So we're thankful for the interns, and thank you, Rob Moses. He leads this program for our interns, and thank you for acknowledging the interns.
All right, happy to have you all. All right, that takes us to our ordinances for first read. First of which is 25-01271, ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to create the Series 2024 City of Atlanta and Fulton County Rec Authority Bond Fund, number 3169, to amend FY25 by adding to anticipations and appropriations bond proceeds from the 2024 Africa Park Improvement revenue and refunding bonds in the aggregate principal amount of $39,480,000 and bond premium in the amount of $5,328,235.50 and for other purposes.
I'll move approval. Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
25-01272 is an ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to create the Capital Asset Intergovernmental Agreement Fund to amend FY25 by adding to anticipations and appropriation bond proceeds from the Atlanta Development Authority revenue bonds, Homeless Opportunity Project, taxable series 2024, in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $50,230,000 and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Juan, second by Bakhtiari. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
Oh, I'm going to substitute. Thank you.
Would all members please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right. 25-01273 requires a substitute. I'll move to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that procedural vote.
The vote is open. That vote is closed.
All right, substitutes before us, the caption of which reads, an ordinance by finance exec as substituted by finance exec, waiving part 2, et cetera, of the code to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Fourth Amendment to the agreement listed. This is workers' compensation third-party administration services with PMA Management Corp. On behalf of DOF to extend the term of the agreement effective from June 26th of this year on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 6 months, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $334,630, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. And
I'd like to hear about this.
yeah, Mr. Deloach, I believe this is you.
Good afternoon. My name
Afternoon.
is Jerry Deloach, Chief Risk Officer from the Office of Enterprise Risk Management in the Department of Finance. This is the Fourth Amendment, and before I go any further, I would be happy to please and to state that we have a pool of respondents. We're in the process of judging that, evaluating those scores, and so this should be the last time we will come to you and ask for an extension. But this is a request for an extension for the month to month for the next 6 months to allow us a chance to do the evaluation, do the scoring, and to come back to council with a request to extend the contract to a third-party administrator.
Mr. Wan.
So actually, it only extends it for another month. I mean, this is retroactive to January of this year. So if you're just getting the respondents, is this enough time to get contract negotiated? Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, I think you're reading it wrong.
Oh, from, okay.
Yeah, from June. The current contract that we have expires in June of this year, June 26th of this year. This is a month to month from June to December.
I got it, okay. Thanks for the clarification. Move to approve on substitute.
A second by Winston, motion by Juan. To approve on substitute, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, the ayes have it, so ordered. 25-0-1274. It's an ordinance by finance exec authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to correct the ordinance listed, which was adopted on the date listed and improved on the date listed, authorizing the mayor to execute all appropriate documents that would grant a utility easement of 750 square feet across real property known as 2041 Delano Drive, Atlanta, land lots 205 and 206 of District 15, Fulton County, also known as Bessie Branham Park, to Georgia Power Company for the purposes of installing underground power distribution facilities by correcting the square footage of the easement to reflect 1,023 square feet in an amount not to exceed $23,000 and for other purposes.
I'll move approval.
And I will second that. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
We want to put this on. Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Councilmember Chair and members of the council. Chris Davis, the Commissioner for the Department of Enterprise Assets Management. We actually want to put this on hold. We did find another error in the calculations, so we want to put it on hold while we correct that.
I'll rescind my second and move to second it.
Thank you.
All right, motion is to hold.
That motion to hold, the vote is open. And the vote is closed. The item's held.
25-0-1275 is an ordinance by finance exec waiving the competitive source selection provisions contained in the listed code section, as well as any other conflicting code provisions, to authorize the mayor to execute the Second Amendment to the sole source agreement listed jail management system with B12 Technologies LLC on behalf of AIM and Corrections to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 9 months effective August 1 of this year through May 1st of next, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $270,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Juan. I will second that. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
25-0-1276 is an ordinance by finance exec authorizing the mayor to execute the first renewal option for the RFP indicated external finance audit services with Malden and Jenkins LLC on behalf of the Atlanta Audit Committee for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from May 16th of this year through May 15th of next, in an amount not to exceed $1,450,000 to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement beginning May 16th with all contracted work charged to and paid from, et cetera.
Good question.
Mr. Juan.
Thank you. So I know we were in conversations about a resolution for Monday that talks about looking at retroactively at fiscal year 2025. Is Malden and Jenkins the one that we would end up using for that? And obviously this amendment doesn't necessarily cover that. Would we end up having to do another amendment to cover those analytics? Oh, okay, this is for y'all then.
I don't think so, because this is requesting permission to exercise our first renewal. So if you're talking about additional work, that's probably finance.
Yeah.
So we are working on the resolution to provide information as far as how we, look at the budget,
Yeah.
the vacancy review board, putting budgetary controls. So we are working on that resolution. And so when we get to the end of the audit with Malden and Jenkins, we will work closely with them.
Okay.
So we'll make sure that information is written in our MD&A, which is a management discussion and analysis, so that we can make sure we coordinate with Malden and Jenkins on that.
So this work is
Right.
more for y'all than it is for
Yes,
finance?
this is
Okay.
the external financial audit.
Got it. I'm
Right.
sorry. That wasn't clear to me, so I appreciate
Sure.
it. I'll move approval.
Yeah.
Okay, second by Hillis. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Would all members please vote? Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, next up is the personnel paper, but I would propose that we hold that off until we take up the budget and other associated papers. So following that course, next up is 25-0-1292, for which we need a substitute. I'll move to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, and the caption reads, an ordinance by Mr. Winston as substituted by FEC, an ordinance to waive the competitive source selection provisions contained in the listed code section, as well as any other code sections or conflicting code provisions, and to waive them such that the mayor shall be authorized to execute the First Amendment to the co-op agreement listed, ADP implementation and integration with ADP, Inc., to add the Department of Labor and Employment and Atlanta Department of Labor and Employment Services to WorkSource Atlanta as additional authorized users, and to add additional funding on behalf of ADOLs in an amount not to exceed $800,000, all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. And and do we have someone to speak to this?
Good afternoon, Council.
Afternoon.
So currently, the Atlanta Department of Labor and Employment Services uses,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm McClendon, Senior Compliance Specialist with the Atlanta Department of Labor and Employment Services. We currently use ADP to processes related to the city's Summer Youth Employment Program. When we were moving forward with procuring these services for background checks and payroll, we were informed that we needed to contract these services as part of the city's existing ADP contract instead of having our own separate contract. This legislation is to do that, add ADOs to the city's existing contract so that we can move forward with prioritizing and our sensitive SOIP processes.
Ms. Bacteria,
Real quick, thank you. This is in addition to what's already being proposed in the budget for DOL?
I think I can chime in on that. Currently, we use ADP for processing our payroll every 2 weeks when we get paid. So we already have a contract in place with ADP.
Okay.
They provide services such as the W-2s, the biweekly payrolls, garnishments. So really, this is just WorkSource being a part of that contract that already exists in the services that we have. So it is funded, and so we just want to add them to the contract for the summer youth program.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Bakhtiari, second by Juan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Items approved on substitute. 25-0-1295 needs a substitute. I'll motion to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, here we go. Let's see, caption is an ordinance by Shook, substituted by FEC, to amend FY 25 by undertaking operating transfers to the general fund from the capital finance fund and other transfers related to the indirect cost allocations by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amounts listed herein and for other purposes.
To
And
bring the substitute. Oh, did we already do that?
yeah, we've done that. Substitutes before us.
Move to approve one substitute.
I'll second that. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote to approve on substitute.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Right, the ayes
7
have
yeas,
it.
0 nays.
25-0-1296 is an ordinance by Shook, authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $10,000 to the Peachtree Park Civic Association from the District 7 carry-forward account for the Peachtree Park Neighborhood Master Plan and for other purposes. I'll move approval. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
25-0-1297 is an ordinance by Ms. Overstreet to ratify the imposition of certain non-ad valorem property assessments levied upon properties participating in the city's property assessed clean energy program, the PACE assessments. Also to authorize the transmittal of information to the applicable tax commissioner for the billing and collection of PACE assessments, and also to direct the applicable tax commissioner to bill and collect the PACE assignments in the same manner and on the same day as assessments for solid waste charges and for other purposes. We've been asked to hold this, so that's my motion. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that.
The vote is open.
Substitute doesn't change.
Thank you.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item's held.
All right. 25-0-1311 requires a substitute. I'll move to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, caption's the same. This is an ordinance by Mr. Amos, supplementing the restated and amended master bond ordinance of the City of Atlanta, adopted on the date indicated as previously amended and supplemented, providing for the issuance by the city of its airport general revenue bonds in the combined aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion U.S. in multiple series designated herein as Series 2025A and B, and any additional subseries designation as herein permitted, providing funds for the purpose of, among other things, financing and refinancing in whole or in part the cost of planning, engineering, design, acquisition, equipping, and construction of certain improvements to the airport, providing for a reasonably required debt service reserve, providing for the payment of costs of issuance, including bond insurance, if any, providing for the forms of and authorizing the execution of said Series 2025 A and B bonds, providing for the rights of the holders of said bonds, authorizing and approving the preparation, use, and distribution of a preliminary official statement and a final official statement in connection with the offer and sale of the bonds, granting the chief officer, the city finance officer, or airport manager the authority to deem final the preliminary official statement for purposes of Securities and Exchange Commission rule, which is listed, and the authority to approve and execute a final official statement authorizing the execution of a continuing disclosure agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and certain other agreements in connection with the Series 2025 A and B bonds, and providing for the incidental related actions, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Mr. Knight.
Good afternoon, Chairmanship,
Afternoon.
members of the committee. Courtney Knight, Chief of Treasury, Debt, and Investments. As we have in the past couple of years, we come to market with new money for the airport's capital program, ATL Next. This year, it's quite a sizable borrowing because we're not only funding ongoing capital projects such as the Concourse D widening project, but we're also refinancing the outstanding commercial paper at the airport to provide the ATL with interim capital to finance ongoing construction projects.
I'll move approval on substitute. Second.
All right, this motion to approve on substitute, second by Bakhtiari. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, 25-0-13-12 also requires a substitute. I'll motion to bring it forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, caption's the same. This is an ordinance by Mr. Amos, supplementing the restated and amended master bond ordinance of the city, adopted on the date listed as previously amended and supplemented, to provide for the establishment of the 2025 airport short-term note program in connection with the issuance from time to time by the city of its third lien Airport General Revenue Short-Term Note Series 2025 STNA in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $300 million, outstanding at any time. B, the third lien Airport General Revenue Short-Term Note Series 2025 STNB in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $300 million, outstanding at any time. And the third lien Airport General Revenue Short-Term Notes Series 2025 SDNC in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $150 million, outstanding at any time, in support of the airport's next plan encumbrance authority, and for the purpose of financing on an interim basis, in whole or in part, the cost of the planning, engineering, designing, acquiring, constructing, and equipping certain improvements to the airport, to authorize and approve the forms of the revolving credit agreements to be entered into, and certain other agreements in connection with the note program, to authorize the City of Atlanta General Airport revenue bonds to be issued as takeout bonds if and to the extent required to pay the principal of and accrued interest on the Series 2025 short-term notes at maturity, all to the extent deemed to be in the best interest of the city by the finance officer and for other related purposes. Mr. Knight.
So I mentioned the airport's accelerated capital program and the fact that they already have outstanding $450 million of commercial paper. We needed more short-term financing capability. So we went out to the marketplace with a solicitation for revolving credit facilities. And that's what this ordinance reflects, is the allocation to Bank of America of $300 million, to PNC Bank of $300 million, and to Wells Fargo of $150 million. They'll be providing us with short-term financing for the ATL capital program.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
So, Mr. Knight, just
Yes,
how
sir.
much harder is it sort of to, I don't know, understand or feel comfortable with in today's investing climate as compared to less turbulent periods?
Again, sir?
How hard is it to read the sort of investment seas these days compared to more placid times?
It's very difficult. There's a great deal of volatility in the markets every day because of uncertainties coming out of Washington, D.C. So the good news is that Atlanta is such a strong credit. It's kind of ironic with the downgrade of the federal government a couple of weeks ago. The federal government has the same rating as the city of Atlanta. So investors will be very interested in buying our bonds, whether they're from the airport or watershed or general obligation bonds.
All right, well, that's, you're earning your pay, that we know. Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to resolutions, first of which is 25R3505. I'll move to bring forward a substitute, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
That vote is open. That vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, this is a resolution by Shook, is substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing the CFO to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in the amount of $417,399.42. All funds should be charged to and paid from, et cetera. I'll move approval on substitute. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you.
Maybe that one. It's up there. Oh, second page of that, sorry.
25R3506. I'll move to bring forward a substitute.
Second.
Let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, substitutes before us. This is a resolution by Shook, is substituted by FEC, authorizing the Commissioner of Department of Watershed Management to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with the city code section listed here in the amount of $55,430.47. I will move approval.
Second.
Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, items approved on substitute. 25R3510 is a resolution by Ms. Boone, Mr. Bond, Ms. Overstreet, and Mr. Hillis to amend the proposed FY26 budget to transfer funds in the amount of $50,000 to the Atlanta Commission on Women in support of its operations, programming initiatives, and for other purposes. I would propose that we just set this aside, leave this here, and we're going to take this up later in the form of a budget amendment. So if you're all right with that, let's move on then to 25R3512. This is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute a sole source agreement for the SSP listed. This is a smart tree inventory with Davie Resource Group pursuant to the code section listed here on behalf of city planning as well as Parks and Rec for a term of 3 years with one-year renewal option in an amount not to exceed $1,895,000 with all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera.
I'll move approval.
I'll second that. Let's open the vote.
Let's split.
The vote is open.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to ask Ms. Heidel real quick, just because it's touching the trust fund, y'all are good with this? Okay, just wanted to.
Yes, we wrote it.
Okay.
It's part of the Urban Forest Master Plan, so it's one of the assessments that's going to go into the 10-year Urban Forest Master Plan.
Just wanted that assurance.
And
Thank you.
800,000 of it will be, over 800,000 of it will be reimbursed from the grant that we wrote.
Thank you. And Ms. Heidel, thank you so much for educating me on the fact that y'all wrote the legislation that you support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That takes us to 25R3513.
One moment. Would all members, okay, the
Oh, we
vote is
did?
closed,
Sorry.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Yeah, the ayes have it. So ordered. Thank you. 25R3513, resolution by FEC authorizing the city on behalf of AIM to accept services for a proof of concept for autopilot provisioning provided by Microsoft as the primary service provider with support from HCL Technologies and a value of $250,000 under an end customer investment fund supplier agreement between HCL Technologies and Microsoft at no cost to the city and for other purposes. Motion to approve by Juan, which I will second. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
25R3514 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute a sole source agreement for the SSP indicated with IBM Maximo software subscription and support services with IBM for IBM Maximo software subscription and support services on behalf of Deem in an amount not to exceed $268,838 for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options, all contracted work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera.
Move to amend to attach the CPO memo.
All right, there's no questions about that amendment. Attaching the memo, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
And I'll move approval as amended. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, and we have a dual that we need to take up and hold. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that item 27?
Item 27.
All right, 25O1306 is an ordinance by Ms. Boone authorizing the CFO to amend the FY25 general fund budget to create a mayor's office of equity, diversity, and inclusion support trust fund for the purpose of funding MODI initiatives and events as may be authorized, waiving the following section of the city code to authorize the mayor as designee to execute contracts with sponsors to support that activity, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of it to accept a donation from the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta in an amount not to exceed $9,670 for the purpose of supporting the initiatives and events, to amend the FY25 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations the amount of $9,670. All funds to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. And the motion is to hold.
Second.
Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, that takes us to a held item, which we need to take up, and that is item 43 on page 17. And I will move to bring a substitute forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Would all members please vote? The vote is closed, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, substitutes before us, same caption, resolution by Shook authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the XX indicated Microsoft Unified Support Services utilizing the state of Georgia contract number of which is indicated between the state of Georgia's Department of Administrative Services and Microsoft Corp. On behalf of AIM in accordance with a section of city code indicated here, which covers use of state contracts of the procurement and real estate code in an amount not to exceed $3,558,037. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from, et cetera, and the substitute includes the iPro. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
Right, there's an iPro attached and a little bit of new language in the second resolve clause.
Second. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. I think that about wraps it up. With the exception of the budget and personnel paper.
Budget items.
So, yeah. All right, we'll start off with 25-0-1147. This is an ordinance by FEC to amend the section of the code indicated here to set the ad valorem tax rate for the general levy, bonded indebtedness levy, parks levy, education levy, special tax district levy, and the Atlanta Beltline Special Service District levy based on every $1,000 or a part thereof of the value of all real and personal property to provide for the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed. To repeal the ordinance number blank and for other purposes. Motion is to hold. We'll take this up in August.
Sorry.
There's no need to vote. It can just remain held.
Yep.
Okay, remain held. So no action needed. We'll take it up in August. Is that right, Ms. Carr? Is that when we expect to deal with it?
Yes, that is correct.
Same caption.
Okay, 25-0-1148 is an ordinance by FEC to set the ad valorem tax rate for the general levy, bonded indebtedness levy, parks levy, education levy, special tax district levy, and the Atlanta Beltline Special Services District levy based on every $1,000 or part thereof of the value of all real and personal property to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed until amended or repealed and for other purposes. I'll move to bring the substitute forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
We should acknowledge the
vote is open.
stitch.
My substitutes before us, Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon, Council. Lawrence Davis, Jr., Revenue Chief for the Office of Revenue. The objective of the ordinance before you today is to align the ordinance with the city's FY26 proposed budget. Upon approval, this ordinance will be enacted prior to receiving the final digest from Fulton and DeKalb County, as well as from the Atlanta Board of Education for the education levy and the special tax district library levy from DeKalb. Following the receipt of the final digest from both counties and notification of the educational levy as well as the special tax district library levy, the city will update the city code to reflect the final millage rate and then repeal the ordinance through ordinance 25-0-1147.
Okay, and this is a substitute because it includes the stitch levy.
That is correct.
All right, I'll second that. Questions or comments? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to the budget, 25-0-1149. This is an ordinance. Well, I'll move to bring a substitute forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Substitutes before us, 25-0-1149 is an ordinance by FEC adopting the FY26 proposed budget to include all funds, to authorize any necessary adjustments to ensure the proper closeout of FY25 for all funds and for other purposes.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Ms. Carr.
Hello. So we have our budget chief, Sean Gabriel. He will walk through the budget amendments and share the information regarding the FY26 proposed budget. Sean?
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Shook. Council members, good to see you. Sean Gabriel, Budget Chief, Department of Finance. Before you should all have a package, the FY26 proposed budget amendment package. It does contain 9 amendments, 4 within the general fund and 4 within aviation. Pages 1 and 2 just provides an overall summary, but I do want to touch briefly on each amendment beginning on page 3, if you do not mind. Amendment number 1 is to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to support operations within the Atlanta Citizen Review Board. The $300,000 provides additional staffing to support community outreach efforts. Amendment number 2, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to allocate funding in the amount of $50,000 for the Atlanta Commission on Women, and that was one of the items that was just before you previously. Amendment number 3, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to allocate funding for Atlanta Pride in the amount of $50,000. Amendment number 4, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to increase revenue anticipations within the Aviation Revenue Fund. The Department of Aviation is increasing revenue for revised estimates as well as rate calculations for landing fees and airline terminal rents. The total amount of this amendment is $16,443,518. This amendment, which increases revenue, does change the overall anticipated revenue for the Department of Aviation and the Aviation Revenue Fund from $835,594,585 to $852,038,103.
Questions about the proposed amendments?
Understood. Any questions regarding amendment number 4? Okay. Amendment number 5. Oh, question? Okay. Amendment number 5, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to properly align expenses with revenue anticipations. This is more of I'll call it a companion amendment to the one we just read out. So we're increasing revenues in the aviation fund of $16 million, and this is just a companion paper to make sure that we are balancing that fund. So we add in the $16 million to expenses. Amendment number 6, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to reallocate operating funds from the Department of Customer Service to the Aviation Revenue Fund. So the $28,188 that you see, it represents costs that was inadvertently charged to the Aviation Fund. There are no DCS employees that are split funded with aviation. So that was inadvertently charged, and now that is just going back to the overall fund. Amendment number 7 is to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to allocate funding to enhance runway markings as required by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and this is within the Aviation Fund for $8 million. Amendment number 8, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to allocate funding for the Caribbean Festival in the amount of $50,000. And the last amendment we have before you, which is amendment number 9, to amend the FY 2026 proposed budget to allocate funding to Agape Center in the amount of $50,000. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation of the 9 amendments that are now being proposed for the FY 26 proposed budget.
Questions? All right, and this is for the block of amendments? Oops.
The substitute brought in all the amendments, correct? Yeah.
Now this exhibit B is all.
Okay. We have a motion to approve on substitute by 1, which I will second. Questions, comments? Let's vote. Yeah.
Okay.
Vote is closed, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, so before we go back to the personnel paper, I think it's important just to note what we've all been discussing here, but I think we all need to sort of to reaffirm and have the public understand that on Monday, we are going to introduce for immediate consideration a resolution that in effect is going to list the ways in which we're going to provide much closer oversight for FY26 than we have in the past, given all of the macroeconomic uncertainty, within which FY26 will have to survive and hopefully thrive. And basically, what we're going to be doing in terms of that oversight will be requesting that the administration continue with its vacancy review board until further notice. Number two, we will be seeking, in effect, an autopsy of FY25, which contained a lot of unpleasant surprises in terms of execution compared to what our expectations were. And so we all need to understand what assumptions were off the rails there. And then instead of waiting for quarterly reports, we're going to be looking at monthly data regarding, revenue expenditures and position transactions. So we will do that Monday. I think that's really important. I would not be able to support this budget absent sort of that belt and suspenders approach. So I want to thank Department of Finance for working with us and thank everyone here who had input into that. And Mr. Wan has worked very hard on it, and we look to have that punched into final shape before Monday. Ms. Bacteri.
I'd also like us to commend Chair Shook on all the work he's done. He's quick to pass out accolades and not quick to receive them, as you can see by his demeanor in this moment. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for everything you've done.
Never let it be said I didn't do the least I could do. Now, we have to go back to the dreaded personnel paper.
Amendment first, since we covered it, that budget.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Well, back to the personnel paper. I will move to bring forward a substitute. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, substitutes before us. Let me read the caption. Caption remains the same, and then we'll have HR walk us through the nature of the substitute. 25-0-1277 is an ordinance by Finance Exec, amending the code sections indicated here so as to provide for certain position abolishments, creations, reclasses, class creations, above entry authorizations, employee position transfers, position funding allocation changes, and other personnel actions in line with the FY26 budget and for other purposes. And I would ask you just simply to touch on the substituted items in this.
Absolutely.
We've all had the opportunity to look at the rest of it.
Absolutely. Good afternoon to Chair Shook, Vice Chair Wan, other members of the Finance Executive Committee. I am Interim Commissioner Calvin Blackburn. I'll be presenting today the substitute to the fiscal year 26 personnel paper on behalf of the Department of Human Resources. The substitute, and I think all of you should have a packet in front of you, the substitute before you includes all of the proposed personnel transactions that were originally presented during the personnel briefing on Thursday, May 22nd. In addition to those items, the substitute includes several updates and new items that were not part of Thursday's presentation. As you review the document, please take note of the following color codes and formatting changes, which help clarify the revisions. You'll note that there are some strike-throughs indicated. Those indicate that items were removed from the original personnel paper presented last Thursday. Red font reflects new action items added since the Thursday briefing. The majority of these are position abolishments that we discussed during that session. And yellow highlights indicate items that were previously included but have been edited since the last briefing. These may involve corrections or clarifications that came to light after Thursday. There are a total of 155 changes to the personnel paper. For your reference, you've been provided hard copies of only the sections that contain these changes. A full electronic version will be made available to you all to review in detail. Now, before I move forward, I want to take a moment to clarify the numbers related to position abolishments. The summary sheet you have before you is slightly off due to 18 position abolishments for fire that were not included originally.
Last time I presented to you, I mentioned that we had a total of 125 position abolishments. As a part of the review, we had previously shared that there would be 93 additional abolishments. Today, 74 of those 93 are included in the substitute. The remaining 19 will be added in a mid-year paper. Now, in addition to the 74 referenced, there are 54 new abolishments. That brings the total number of abolishments that we'll be presenting in the paper to 253. You won't see this 253 figure reflected in the current summary sheet as my team is still finalizing the details. However, you will receive a clean, updated summary sheet along with the final substitute prior to adoption to ensure that you have the most accurate and transparent version of the FY26 personnel paper. Now for the changes specifically by department. The City Council, you will note, had 3 position abolishments. Atlanta Department of Transportation, 42 abolishments. Aviation added 2 position creations and 2 reclassifications with incumbent. Corrections added 2 abolishments and corrected 1 classification under position creation. AIM, Atlanta Information Management, had 21 abolishments. Customer Service added 4 abolishments. City Planning had multiple updates, and let me run through those. City Planning added 1 classification title amendment. They added and removed reclassifications with incumbents due to duplication. They removed 1 classification accomplishment and 1 title amendment. They corrected 1 classification creation regarding the title only. They corrected 3 account numbers and 1 fund under position transfers. They also corrected 1 reason for a salary grade amendment. Moving on now to the Executive Office. They added 3 additional abolishments. Atlanta Fire, as I referenced earlier, 18 abolishments. Human Resources added 3 abolishments, 1 position transfer, and 1 employee salary adjustment. Procurement added 1 more abolishment. Public Works added 20 abolishments. Solicitor's Office removed 9 classifications with incumbent, and the Department of Watershed added 1 abolishment. Altogether, the total number of actions reflected in this personnel paper stands at 1,052. Again, that number is not reflected on the summary sheet. In your packets, you'll find a summary sheet that consolidates all the changes described, a new summary sheet by department for your records, which will be updated, the funded versus unfunded data by department, which you should have received last night, the much anticipated Shook report, which is a year-over-year citywide headcount comparison. This document allows you to compare all changes and trends in personnel action over a 10-year period. I do want to point out 1 clarification regarding the funded and unfunded data. The bottom line total in the funding summary does not exactly match the total number of actions in the Shook report. This is due to the Department of Enterprise Management, which added 36 abolishments that were not originally omitted in the funded, unfunded breakdown. We noticed this last night as we were preparing, and we made sure to represent these abolishments. We made sure to put these abolishments in the numbers you see in the Shook report. As a reminder, the funding status for each position, whether funded or unfunded, is reported directly by the departments. We work closely with the departments as well as the Department of Finance to ensure that this data is accurate, but we did notice some decimals as we review the report, and we will have to do a deeper dive to identify the errors. Therefore, the result may be off by 1 or 2 positions. That concludes our overview of the fiscal year 26 personnel paper. I appreciate your attention to the changes and updates, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman Shook. Thank you, Commissioner. First question on the sheet provided, that is the funded versus unfunded as of 5/27. Can you please explain to me and my colleagues what a filled but unfunded position is? Is that we have people working for free? Or?
It sounds like it's an oxymoron when you think about it, but what I understand, it is a position that's been allotted for and was not in the budget. But as I understand, somehow miraculously it gets filled and paid for, I guess, through some kind of fund, the general fund. But it's a bit of an oxymoron to me. I must admit I don't fully understand it, but it is a position that's been allowed for that's not in the budget, though, but ultimately people sitting in it get paid. And I'm not sure I understand exactly how that works. I can,
Yeah, if you don't, we're going to need somebody to explain it to us, so.
Sure, and I actually saw April smiling, but I can explain the field unfunded. So during the process, when we were going through the process of making sure that we had all the positions back, it was really a timing difference, because if there were some positions that were vacant at the time, then those positions were not funded when we got to the upload. And so when we work closely with HR, when you look at what we have now, this is as of today. So there's pretty much a timing difference. And again, if you look at the vacant funded positions of 840, based on the spreadsheet that the commissioner is speaking of, versus the field unfunded, 315. So you're going to see a difference there. If you net the two of those together, that's around 530, 529, give or take. So it's really just the timing on when those positions were filled based on the data that we have in the report today.
Okay, but that's still not clear to me. At least what it sounds like on what it looks like in paper and sounds like is, or what the commissioner was saying, that people are hiring people to come work without actually having authorization to do so. Did that happen in FY25?
So currently, right now, we have the Vacancy Review Board. And so with that Vacancy Review Board, individuals have to go before that board to get permission to fill those positions. They have to be positions that are critical in nature, and they have to make sure that those are positions that are needed. If that position has been vacant for a period of time, I would say maybe a year or so, the question is whether or not you really need that position. So that is a part of what the Vacancy Review Board is for, to make sure we analyze the positions, to make sure they're critical and make sure that they're needed.
Okay, well, I'll let my colleagues come back to that. Other question is, this report still shows almost 1,200 vacant but unfunded, which has generally been the conversation. But this is before the abolishments occur in this FY26 personnel paper, or after?
I'm going to have my budget director come up and speak to that briefly.
April Weeks with HR. So it does include the FY26 abolishments. We just missed the 36 for Dean, but we're still in the process of kind of working with the departments. I don't want to say that we have all of them, but from what the direction I've given them is to provide me with the FY26 data in this head count. So
you're saying this almost 1,200 vacant unfunded positions is after?
This is after the current abolishments that we're doing in the proposed.
So that still seems like a big issue and problem with me, because that is still, I mean, that almost 1,200 is even 50% more than the vacant but funded positions that we would now have.
And I'm not exactly sure what the 570 are for APD, but those are from the police department, so half of this is public safety.
All right, well, I will maybe come back, but we'll defer to my two colleagues that are in the queue. Thank you.
Mr. Watt.
I wish you had not answered the question the way you answered that. I'll be honest with you. Now I'm going to have to figure out a way not to unravel this whole thing, because I was presuming that these unfunded vacant positions were as of today pre-action on the personnel paper, because we haven't acted on that yet. And if you're telling me that we are basically, all those abolishments, those 253, I think was the number you gave me, that pushes us up to close to what, 1,500 today vacant unfunded positions. And to Councilmember Hills's point, the filled unfunded positions, that's what got us in trouble this year. We had these positions, and when the additional resources came in, department people said, oh, if I've got the money for it, I'm just going to go ahead and fill these positions, and then we're going to have to pay the consequences for that later when we've got this huge budget of salary that we're having to carry year after year after year from this point on, because we are loath to kind of right size. And so everything you've just told me kind of goes against everything that I walked away from the personnel paper hearing we had last week, and makes me even more leery of the budget we just signed off on, because I thought there were some of these safety measures baked into that. So someone's going to have to help me get comfortable, because, yeah, this might get messy before it gets better.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Theo Pace, Deputy Chief of Staff. What I would add is the difference between last year and now is that we have reconstituted the Vacancy Review Board. So every department has to submit any RTF for any position that they would like to fill, whether funded or unfunded, for approval. So the CFO, the Commissioner of Department of Human Resources, as well as the COO and others participate to have to approve every position before it is advertised on the city website.
Great, I appreciate that. But you have to remember, our responsibility on this side is to approve the budget and approve the personnel paper.
Correct.
After that, we're not on the Vacancy Review Board, so we don't have a say in that. I mean, a different group of people sitting on that could say, come on, yeah, come on in, we're going to approve everything. This is the only control we have. And you're asking us to make a leap of faith with all these potential commitments that undid our, I wouldn't say undid, but surprised us with the FY25 budget. I'm not ready to make that mistake again. And so this is our chance to put our foot on the ground and say, wait a minute, we're going to approve this amount of money and we're going to authorize these positions. And this personnel paper still, even after 250 abolishments, leaves us with 1,200 unfunded vacant positions, that the only safeguard we have is the Vacancy Review Board. That doesn't make me feel okay. I'm sorry, but I mean, I appreciate that you've got that in there, but once again, we're not in that process. So help me get comfortable.
I think part of the additional requirements that you all put in place are the monthly financial reports that you would get from the Department of Finance, which does have the personnel information and things like that. I don't know if there's any additional personnel information that could be provided in addition to that on a monthly basis. But
keep on.
I would add that since January, when we initially constituted the VRB, most of the positions that have been approved are public safety related. And so we have that barrier in place so that it does not get to filling in any of these unfilled positions, to your point, which I think
Mr. Pace, I mean, you know, by code, we only get one more chance at the personnel paper during the year. So, and that to me, we may be monitoring this monthly, but we only get one more bite at the apple mid-year, and that may be too late. By that point, who knows how many of these 1,200 positions, only by the sheer goodwill and good actions of the VRB will we be able to hold that line. And so the past year doesn't give me confidence that that's enough of a control. I mean, I hate saying it, but these vacant unfunded positions, if we were doing our job right now and being concerned about the financial situation and the forecast for next year, these, in my opinion, should go. I mean, if we were really doing our job. I mean, I don't have a problem with leaving some, but to see a 315 number under the filled unfunded column is just jaw-dropping. It is, because
and most of those are in public safety as well.
It doesn't matter to me where they are. What it means to me is that the departments see that they have the flexibility, if resources come in, to be able to start filling these unfunded positions that kind of got by us. I mean, that's in the most paranoid and concerned stance, posture. That's how I read this table. And so, yeah, I'm glad I asked for this. It's unfortunate that we got it last night, the night before we're doing a personnel paper, because I think if I had seen this earlier in the budget process, I think we would have had more vigorous conversations around what's happening here. And so I wish I hadn't gotten the answers that we just got. And I'm going to step back and let my other colleagues talk, but oof. I mean, okay. I yield, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Vice Chairman Wan, I just wanted to add to what Chief Pates mentioned. We do have guardrails that we're putting in place as far as with the reporting. So we are proposing to also have a staffing report with the personnel to show the trending for month to month on who we have on staff as far as with positions on payroll. In addition to that, we are putting controls in place in addition to vacancy review board that will continue, and then also having monthly reports that will be delivered to you all so that we can make sure that we share that information. So we do have a lot of things in the pipeline, making sure, and we do know that that resolution will be presented on Monday. So we are thoughtful about what we're doing, and we're making sure that we're keeping a very, very close eye on this budget that we have proposed for FY26.
Ms. Carr, I appreciate that, and I absolutely agree with it. But remember, that's a monitoring mechanism. We have to think another step ahead of when we start seeing things, what can we do? What can council do? What actions are we able to take? As I mentioned, the personnel paper, we can only touch one more time during the next fiscal year. So that's handcuffed us already when we know this is looming, and this also was kind of where we found ourselves in terms of the budget for FY25. So that makes me uncomfortable because, great, we're going to see it on a month-to-month basis, but what are we going to be able to do? And the other piece of it is that this is our job. This is the budget setting and the personal paper are our job right now, this month, every year. And it is, if for those of us that have angst about the fiscal future ahead of us, as I stated during the very first budget hearing, I would have expected us to dial things way back so that if things improve, then we can start, releasing the water a little bit more. This is the other way around, where we're releasing the water, and somewhere in the middle of the year, we're going to have to figure out how to, I don't know, I don't even know what the analogy is because I can't think of it. So I appreciate the monitoring again, but I'm trying to translate that into actionable steps that we can take. And this, what is before us right now, is the first actionable step. And I want us to make sure we think through that opportunity before we just let this personnel paper go. So thank you.
Ms. Bakhtiari.
Thank you. So I want to follow up on one of Councilmember Wan's questions because obviously I'm a little thrown for a loop. So where are our vacancies? He's estimating that today, because not included, we're at 1,200, but the sheet's saying somewhere around 840. So do we know what our actual numbers are?
Yeah, this is including
1,500, I should say.
26 proposed actions. So
Councilmember Wan, I was following up on your question of where vacancies, you said that you were talking about vacancies and looking at the numbers that were not on this paper, but what's being reported, we're at 1,500 based on your math?
Yeah.
Do you want to speak in the mic?
No, I'm only focused on the vacant, unfunded.
Okay.
Because I understand the abolishments were all, or largely unfunded vacant positions.
Got it. Okay. So are we hiring people to Councilmember Hills' question about are we hiring people, where he asked if people are just working for free, or we hire people into the unfunded position. So we are hiring people into unfunded, but even though there's funded positions in these departments, we're still hiring unfunded. I'm trying to walk through this.
I'll defer to CFO, if you could provide some clarity with that.
Departments have to have funding before they can move forward with hiring a position.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I understand that part, but I'm looking at in some of these departments that are, I'm asking because based on the answers, and I just need clarification, there are funded funded vacant positions and also unfunded positions in each of these departments, and based on what was saying of hiring unfunded positions, but I'm still seeing funded positions that are vacant in each department. So I'm asking how that's being prioritized, because what I'm hearing is it sounds like we're hiring for unfunded when we have funded vacancies. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So again, as a part of the vacancy review board, when that board meets, departments have to justify the positions first, and they also must have funding in place before those positions are filled. What we're seeing here on this report, again, is really just the timing on when positions were filled, when the information was prepared for the budget, the proposed budget back in February.
So you're saying that some of those folks may have already been hired before the funded positions were established, so got it. Okay. And forgive me if this comes off as a ignorant question, but taking a look at the funded vacancies that we have, may I ask why we don't lower those numbers or potentially get rid of them altogether? Because it would just seem to me, as we're creating positions, that we'd be able to make those adjustments throughout the year. And it would seem, I know that people are saying that we're headed into a recession. I think based on the photos I'm seeing in the ports that were already there. So I'm
That's
curious
a
as to
very
why.
good question. And so when you look at the funded vacant positions, you will see a large portion of that is for aviation and watershed.
Okay.
Those are enterprise funds. So when you look at aviation, it's 142. We also have watershed, 267. The enterprise funds have a process of making sure all their positions are fully funded, whether or not it's vacant or not.
Okay, and this with, so I'm saying you, okay, aviation and watershed, understood. What about parks?
So I do know that parks is a little bit different. With parks, they have seasonal workers. They also have things that they do during the summer, Camp Best Friends. They also have positions that are in the Park Improvement Bond Fund. They also have positions that are also in the Tree Trust Fund. So it's a little bit of hodgepodge here with parks. But again, when you look at the majority of it, most of these positions, again, are in aviation watershed, which is our enterprise funds, and we want to make sure we're doing everything to make sure that we're operating and making sure those enterprise funds have what they need so that they can fill those positions.
Understood. Thank you, because I was looking at another one in terms of the other second one that I see, second largest is executive at 25.5 vacant funded. So can you kind of walk me through, because I know that we have a lot of questions about the executive budget, so yes, Deputy Chief. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Sorry, I was asking about the vacant funded position. I was going through, as Deputy Chief told me, why aviation watershed, those pieces that are higher. We talked through parks, and I was saying the next highest vacant funded department is under executive, which is at 25.5, and I was hoping you could walk us through that, and also asking, like, do we know, because we don't have a line item breakdown of what the cost is for each of those positions. Is there a way that you can talk us through those numbers and kind of shed light on the amount?
Sure. So I would need to get you a breakdown of these positions because they're broken down under the Chief of Staff's budget, the Chief Operating Officer's budget as well. So I would need to get a breakdown of that to provide you with the appropriate answer.
Thank you. Would there be any way of getting that early next week? Thank you so much. And that being said, I had my questions written somewhere. Yeah, I think just my last question, I wanted to give a shout out to the council offices and being fantastic. And I want to encourage Ms. Kimpson Wright to advocate for what she deserves, which is a deputy. And I just wanted to make sure that they were getting all that they needed, because I know we've got some cuts there.
To the city council?
That I saw some abolishments, and because they are short-staffed, I was curious about the deputy position being abolished and if that at any point in the year, because these microphones are hostile. So if we could look at, is there any discussion of reinstating that later in the year? Because I know that they're going to be, that their responsibilities, as all of ours, are going to grow over this next year, given our current situation.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We'll look into that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That concludes my questions for now. I will tap again if I have for the second queue, but I'll go ahead and defer to my colleague.
Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you. So my question is specifically around the abolishment of 18 positions for Atlanta Fire Rescue. That's interesting to me. I want to drill down on that, and I looked through which positions were abolished and why. And, you know, I'm just a big advocate of making sure that we are delivering on our city services and that we're prioritizing city services. And, you know, fire is in our charter. So I just want to make sure that we're making the right decisions here. I see here that we're getting rid of a special projects coordinator, EMS instructor, fire medical responder. I mean, I really want to understand how I even see firefighter on here. So I want to know what I'm missing.
Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. I appreciate your concern. I would have to inform you that these decisions were made at the department level. This is what the Department of Fire decided to abolish. It wasn't, done by our department. So my assumption is that they made these business decisions based on their current needs and what made sense for them. I would have to defer to the department for any specific questions or concerns you might have about why they selected certain positions, but they sent these to us as far as positions that they were choosing to abolish within their own business unit.
Okay, and you were comfortable with that?
Well, we certainly trust the departments to be in the best position to make a decision about what positions they need or they don't need. So I was comfortable with their ability to do that, council member, and you respect their decisions. They would know better than we would.
Can I add, when you're eliminating vacancies, to me, the exercise should be about not carrying more vacancies than you should reasonably be able to fill. And so it's not, I don't see it as we're getting rid of people or functions. We're eliminating some of the vacancies that are unreasonable to expect to be filled in the coming year. And that far exceeds, what we're going to be able to recruit and train people for.
So that's ideal, but we've not, in the last 4 years, been filling our positions, especially police and fire, at an alarming rate where, where we like to, at a rate that we like to fill them. So that's why I did want to double check on that for sure.
I'd be happy to circle back with fire.
Okay.
If you'd like to inquire more about their decisions, but again, they made those decisions and sort of sent them to us. But I'm happy, council member, to inquire further about it. I think the sheet provided each specific position, but I'm happy to inquire more.
Okay, and I think I'm going to reach out too, but definitely, and I'll circle back with you also. All right. Well, I yield.
All right. Let me try to come at this from a slightly different way and ask the administration what effort was made to ask either the administration or HR. Let me ask HR. Were you asked to opine, look at the data and opine what you thought the number of positions should be per department that could be reasonably expected to be filled?
Certainly, I did that for my department. Right. But as far as making those estimations for each department, no. We depended on data and information from the heads of those respective departments.
Okay.
But certainly, there was a push from administration to find ways to abolish positions that were no longer needed.
So there's two pots that are kind of coming to a boil here. One's been coming to a boil throughout the FY26 process. The other, in terms of Juan and Shook, has been boiling a long, long time, many years, regarding vacancies. We've been asking the same questions, expressing the same concerns 4 years before you got here.
Right.
So I think for us, it's kind of an extra problem we have to psychologically work through. You know, a lot of us are extremely nervous about this budget, FY26, which bears a lot of family resemblance to FY25, which was an epic fail. An epic fail. And we are in the most uncertain macroeconomic times since '08. And I've asked you, I've asked the CFO, what is preventing the liquidation of vacancies that we all know can't be filled? And I only point out, some of these departments have been carrying around a 20% vacancy rate for as long as I've been here. That includes departments that have received national accreditation for excellence, only attained by 2 or 3% of their peers. Obviously, those are positions that it would be nice to have, but that they do not need. I don't know if the answer here is to ask that you come back with, you know, more liquidations of unfunded vacancies. I mean, let's remember, they are unfunded. We're not saving any money by doing this. It's just a frustrating intellectual component here that we're having a hard time wrapping our minds around. And so, Mr. Pace, I hate to put you on the spot, but you do appear to be the ranking first responder here for the administration. Why is it only a couple hundred vacancies? Now, granted, there's whatever, close to 500 are public safety, but to me, I don't care if it's police or fire. If we have no reason to think those are going to be filled, they should not be sacred cows. And yes, 400, another 400 are in the enterprise funds. I don't know, they kind of get away with a lot. I think they don't come under for near as much scrutiny as the general fund comes under. So that's around 900 of the right there. But why not more unfunded liquidations?
I would say that the administration is working towards that. If you go back to the mid-year personnel paper for FY25, you saw some abolishments there. After we came through here a couple of cycles ago, and prior to the personnel discussion, there were some more abolishments. The departments are working more. I know that the COO reached out to everyone in the cabinet to inquire about positions that have gone unfilled for more than a year. And so we are working towards that. And I think in the FY26 mid-year personnel paper, you will probably see more abolishments and creations. And so we are working towards that. It was a huge number prior to this administration. And I think if you go back over previous budget years, you will see that there's a decline in the number of unfilled positions.
Yeah, there is somewhat. I'll be honest, I feel as though you have your commissioners on the honor system.
Well, I think that's what occurred up until the end of last year, end of 2024. And so right now, I know that the COO and the CFO and the department HR commissioner are meeting more regularly to go over these abolishments. And so that has been a directive from the mayor and the COO to all of our commissioners about abolishing positions. And so I know that it is not, that number is not increasing as quickly as you all would like to see that, but we are headed in that direction.
Okay, and I appreciate the work of the VRB. From what I see, I think it's working. I think it's been an enormous help. And as I said, our resolution is going to ask you all to continue that. Let's talk for a minute about filled positions. If our FY26 assumptions are wrong, we're going to be having our first RIF since '08. We're real nervous about that. I mean, it's kind of, that's our job, is to worry, especially the people on this committee. And I think we do a damn good job of it. And I don't know if we're going to have it. It's not written in stone that we're going to have a recession. It's not. These things might work out. I mean, like I said, without the guardrails, I'm so sick of that word, without the terms and conditions that are going to be contained in the amendment for Monday, like I just said, I'd be out. I would not be able to support this. I think this is, I think we're hoping to get really lucky here. I mean, otherwise, we are going to see people go out the door. Now, when that happens, I hope we're going to stay away from the frontline workers that our residents depend on, people who pick up our trash, who work in the parks, police and fire, you know, the essentials, the people who keep the lights on here. I think there's a lot of upper management fluff in this at 55 Trinity, frankly. You know, every department has a commissioner and 5 deputies, and they all have 5 managers, and they all have 150,000 admin assistants. And that hasn't happened overnight, but it's happened over time. And so if the axe falls, and I hate to use that word, but I was here.
So was I.
You know, the world is composed of 2 groups, as I said at the outset of this, those who were here in 08 and lived it, and those who have only heard about it. That's why I have PTSD over all of this. That's all I have for right now. Suggestions? Ms. Bakhtiari.
I was going to, echoing Councilmember Shook, I also just think it's worth noting that this will be his last year. And we're headed into very uncertain times, and I want us all to take note of the fact that that is a huge vacuum that'll be left around financial integrity on this body. And so not having him next year in uncertain times does also give me great worry, because that's another factor added in. So I thought that was worth naming.
Well, thank you. I'm tempted to riff myself right about now.
You did that.
No, I mean like today. All right, it seems to me that options include asking them to bring us more vacancies Monday. I don't mean 12 or 14 either. I mean, like, really look at what you think you can fill and what you know you can't fill. And I would, you may have to hurt some commissioners' feelings.
Understood.
I really don't care at this point. And again, if your department has been nationally accredited with a 20% vacancy rate for 24 years, get rid of them. Now, I appreciate the prior administration did a lot of the dirty work of getting rid of funded positions that couldn't be filled. So that was a big improvement. We're now hanging on to what I think kind of should be the easier lift around unfunded. This is not moving forward today. Or I mean, we can send it forward without recommendation. I mean, this is not going to get sent forward with approval today, I don't think, unless I completely misread everybody here.
If I may.
Try it.
Well, I think that's going to be our best option, is to move it forward with no recommendation. And to Councilmember Shook's point, it's got have between now and Monday another pencil sharpening opportunity. I just want to remind folks, you know, during the budget hearings, we also were talking about overtime. And so when I look at this, the funded vacant positions, as well as what I understand from the presenters was an overtime number on the high side. I feel like there is plenty of flexibility and cushion and nimbleness resources for departments, that the unfunded vacant positions should be an easy give up. Or the flip side is, if y'all want to hang on to that, then let's take a hard look at that overtime number. I mean, again, it's just, this combination doesn't make fiscal sense to me. So I kind of posit that to y'all between now and Monday. The other number I'm looking at is on the Shook report. that we are going in fiscal year 2025 to 2026, we are going from 8,700 positions to 10,700 positions. That's going in the wrong direction in a year of uncertainty. And, I understand these numbers include funded, unfunded, grant funded, but the simple fact is we're creating an opportunity for us to get to find ourselves mid-year in real financial trouble. And a lot of these staffing decisions are so difficult, as Mr. Shook said, so difficult to reverse and unwind. So I think that's why you're seeing us focus so much attention on this. If we're going to sharpen our pencils, this is where we got to sharpen them, because anyway. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and put a motion on the table to move this forward with no recommendation on condition. And the condition is that there's going to be another substitute on Monday, hopefully before, so that we can digest it versus having to digest it on the council floor on Monday. But that it takes into account everything you're hearing from us up here in terms of concerns and where the focus needs to be. Even the 1,200 unfunded vacant positions versus the 10,700 positions, so that's a lot. I mean, that's over 10% of our head count that is unfunded on top of the funded one. So I'll reluctantly put that motion out, but I just want to at least get y'all to understand what my expectations are for Monday.
I'll second that, Ms. Bacteria.
I just, for clarity's sake, and so we have everything out on the table, what happens if the condition is not met?
In my opinion, if it's not met and we're not satisfied, we hold the budget. We hold everything. We don't have to pass it till June 30th. So we are kind of ahead of schedule in terms of normal year cadences, date-wise. But we have the 14th meeting, and if we need to do a special call, we have other options if we need more time. I don't want to see that, but if we need to.
And understanding how pressed everyone is in the work, but I really hope we break with our standard of rushing things on the day of, and to echo Councilmember Juan, to be given time to digest. So asking if we can, reiterating again, trying to get us this information or doing what is asked in a timely fashion, which I know is not an easy task. So thank you all.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Couldn't sit.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Any comments from the administration as to our action?
No. We will all get together and take a look at the list that was provided with you all and have some additional information to provide you sooner rather than later.
The COO is here. Did you have a comment? Thanks for coming in.
Good afternoon. LaShondra Burks, Chief Operating Officer for the City of Atlanta. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much. I had an opportunity to listen in to many of the comments that were made around the personnel paper. And so I want to first thank the team for the work that they have done on this to get us to this point. I know you've heard about Vacancy Review Board. Not sure if everyone completely understands how it works, but we've talked about that. So I've heard a lot of the comments. But I think for me, I'm at a point of understanding what is digestible and what is satisfactory and what meets the demands, because I don't think I've heard that so far. And that would be helpful for us. One of the things that we did do most recently was we went back in a day's time to the team. I asked the HR team to present all positions that had been vacant for over a year. And we were able to increase the number overnight of abolishments that we have before you now. We used the same exercise back in January for the March paper that was done. So I don't want us to ignore the abolishments that were done in the March paper, because that also contributed to where we are now, which gets us to a little over 300 versus the 200. So for me, it is, I've been working hard. We've been pushing the team. Knowing that we have an opportunity to do a second personnel paper, it was going to give us a little more time to work individually with each department to understand their needs, understand why positions have been vacant for so long, and what they think they will need going forward. I think we've also talked about sometimes you want those vacancies because you get to a point where you haven't filled a position, you have some salary savings, and you decide, I may not need this position, but I have this vacant unfunded position that I would prefer to use over this position instead of backfilling it. And so those are the opportunities and a little bit of flexibility we try to leave for the departments, even though they still have to come before the Vacancy Review Board. But for me, my question, first time to you all usually asking me, but I do want to ask the question. I've heard the words satisfactory, meet the demands, digestible, and just really want to understand what that means.
We're not usually accused of understating our opinions, so Mr. Warren.
No.
Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam COO. As the paper was passed on condition that, more of these almost 1,200 vacant but unfunded positions be kind of worked through. I don't know if you and the HR commissioner need to bring each department head in one by one into a dark room and, demand they tell you, what are you going to be filling within the next year? I mean, for example, and I will say, first of all, as you know, I've been a big advocate for public safety. I've been a chair or the vice chair of the Public Safety Committee each of my years on council, worked with you when you were the deputy COO over those two departments. But there is no way that the most excellent police chief in the United States, named Aaron Shearbaum, is going to fill 570 vacant and unfunded police positions. And the same thing goes for the fire chief. So maybe start there. I think he was one of the few in his budget presentation that mentioned, or maybe he was asked the question when we would get back to the slightly above 2,000 level, and it was, I believe, fiscal year 28 or something like that, so 2 years away. So I think that's what we want to see. And then just to name a few others, DPW still has 90, city planning has 90, DEEM has 50, and so on. So that's my input. Thank you.
No, and thank you, council member. And that is a process that we want to take on, but we were not able to in this budget process as quickly as we wanted to. I think you heard me say I gave everybody an overnight noon deadline to get some additional in after I went through as much as I could one night and sent them to people, where are we on these? Are these positions you feel you really need? Because it's been vacant for this long. But I will tell you, a lot of our time, and I hope you have seen it in our budget presentations, have really been spent on what does that 5%, 7.5%, and 10% budget cut looks like, because we knew that was the most important part. And we spent a lot of time on that, going through each scenario with each department, meeting multiple times between finance, HR, and the departments. So we feel like we gave you a decent budget, which, you all have passed in committee, and certainly appreciate that. And I hope, and I've had multiple conversations with you all and hoping that you value the work that we put into it. Now it's time to put that same level of work into the personnel paper. And we could not balance both at the same time. And so we did what we could to show our good faith efforts to move it forward, and just asked for that little bit of time to finish that work. We want to deep dive into that, just as I don't know about the dark room, but we do want to deep dive into that, just as we did the whole budget process.
Mr. Warren.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam COO, for coming over here. I mean, I think I've probably been the most vocal about this all through the budget process, asking for this information, because I was a little nervous about the in aggregate what this picture looked like. If it were me and I just was being kind of that fiscal tiger that I want to be, I would want all those vacant unfunded positions gone. Because we've given y'all 840 funded vacant positions and quite a bit of overtime dollars in aggregate to give the flexibility and nimbleness that I think the departments need. I don't think that's practical in terms of between now and Monday. But yeah, I mean, what I would hope is a significant reduction in terms of that number. And you know, I think the 200 that y'all scrubbed earlier is probably the low-hanging fruit, was the easy one. Now it's time for the really tough questions. And the conversation to me should be these 19 positions, or these 1,200 positions that, you know, you start back at zero and you tell me exactly which ones you want in your department and what the rationale is and why you feel like you need, on top of your funded vacant positions, why you actually need even more cushion. I think the other piece is around, and maybe this will help because between now and Monday, is you said it very, very bluntly, most of us don't understand the process of the Vacancy Review Board and the composition, the process, the data to date. Maybe if you showed us that department heads came and asked you for 1,000 fills and y'all only gave them 5, that would make me... Okay, but that would make me feel a lot better. We just don't have those numbers, and that's why in the monitoring going forward, I'll ask to have those reports to us as well. I also would be curious as to, does the Vacancy Review Board approve hiring someone into an unfunded position?
Sure. So the only way you can do that is in the justification. So I'll start back, and we can certainly get you the numbers. Since January, I mean, there are times where the team will come in with 7 pages on a spreadsheet and may leave out with less than 1 page approved. I'm really looking at the critical positions, frontline positions, which I heard you all say, even if we have to go through something, preferably not, but if we have to go through a reduction in force or restructuring, definitely not looking at the frontline people, because those are the ones that we have been approving. And every now and then there is one where the justification really makes sense. There are a lot of follow-up conversations, so all the decisions are not always even made sitting at the table when we meet, because they require follow-up conversations. And I think every commissioner can probably share that with you, that they have been like, I can't believe you all said no. And it hasn't been the Vacancy Review Board. I've been accused of just saying no, considering that there is a full board. But I will tell you, if you are interested in filling a vacant position that is unfunded, your justification has to show that there is still funding in your budget in order to fill that. So is there another position that is funded that you have not been able to fill, and you're not going to fill that one in order to fill this unfunded one, so that we can make sure that from a financial perspective that crosses over?
Is there a complementary abolishment and defunding of that funded position? Well, there should be.
You can only abolish it, right, when you get through. So that position then falls into the unfunded category, because you've used the funding for that one. And so if you then want to fill that one, you still have to come back and give justification for that and show where that funding is. I can also tell you, when we first started this process, there were a lot of positions listed on the website. And I worked with HR to remove every position off the website. The only positions that are now on our city's website are those that have been approved by the Vacancy Review Board. Nothing else. You cannot even get a position posted unless it goes through that process.
Yeah, so my comment earlier was really, I mean, are moving forward with the unfunded vacant, well, actually even with the vacant funded positions, relies on the VRB being our sole gatekeeper. And, you know, helping us and helping me get comfortable with the rigor and the discipline that body has demonstrated to date will be helpful against whatever unfunded vacant positions y'all come back with on Monday, because that ultimately is the only, you know, aside from council actions with the personnel paper, is our only kind of remaining safeguard on that. I should add too that Ms. Robinson did clarify that a strict interpretation of the code actually would allow us to go in and do additional abolishments and creations, but not salary adjustments. We can only do that twice a year. So that offers some relief as well. But I kind of look at that more as a whatever doesn't get done Monday, we get done in July, and then we get done again in August and September in terms of just keep getting rid of these, keep sharpening the pencils. It's not really to the opportunity to create positions. It's more to narrow the guardrails even further. So, again, I don't have a target number. It's not like 54.75%, but it needs to be meaningful. It needs to be a demonstrative understanding and collaboration, partnership with the administration that of our concerns around this, that you share our just fiscal discipline, and and that we're going to weather this together. It's going to be harder. Departments may not have the same flexibility they had in previous fiscal years, but it's only because of the headwinds that we are anticipating. But yeah, again, the Vacancy Review Board background and context will be really helpful. So.
We can certainly provide that. And I hope you know that, I hope you have seen that we have demonstrated
absolutely.
Fiscal commitment as well, even from starting with requiring everybody to do 5% cuts. We put new measures in for overtime because we saw that running over. So I'm hoping that you have seen our commitment since January as we started to work on this process as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, before I go to Mr. Winston, the CFO.
Yeah, I just want to echo the COO's comments, but one thing that we don't see here that I think brings in some good historical context is even if we were to just wipe out the whole unfunded vacancy positions, in our construct, in our mechanism, in the past, what people have done is create extra help positions throughout the year. So the process of creating extra help, that is sometimes creates these additional positions, but that's why every single action comes back to the VRB, including the request for an extra help. So even if we were to abolish this column, it does not negate the fact that without proper oversight, people can create additional capacity for individuals to enter the system. So all of those guardrails are put in place in the VRB down to the increase for salary requirements that also eats up the salary funding and impacts our projections going forward. So an example is you might have a position of 2 funded vacancies at the beginning of the year, but you've also made some personnel decisions with regards to salary enhancements. Those funded positions will not be funded in the VRB. That's how nuanced that process is put in place, but we wholeheartedly hear that some more nuanced approach can go into this. But just walking in and seeing these numbers, I wasn't as alarmed as some because I guess I'm more intimate with them. But we've always carried the public safety unfunded fit positions. We put them there. We have an aspirational target there. We know that they're not going to fund them, but it also allows the chief flexibility on hiring decisions if he wants an investigator versus a detective versus a frontline salary that's in there. We just have to make sure that whatever we abolish, that there's still capacity for the chief to make operational decisions without necessarily having to leverage extra help or a different mechanism to onboard an individual.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam COO. And I think I got part of my answer from CFO there. I shared the same concerns with my colleagues, seeing that 1,200 number when, we have that 850 number that has been funded. And I guess, my question in hearing this is this gives the flexibility for positions we may not know about down the road. For instance, if, I have certain funded positions that are there and, for something that's clerical, for example, and then down the road, I need an AI guru that's not listed here. A year from now, that gives me the flexibility to be able to do that. So I understand seeing the numbers. I still have some concerns about seeing the numbers that are so high. I just wonder how what's the middle ground here, knowing that there's better clarification on why we need some of these, future positions in case they come up. So, I'm a little bit more comfortable than I was a few minutes ago hearing your explanation, but I'm just wondering, again, can we still take a deep dive between now and Monday to just make sure that these numbers are realistic? For instance, like the APD number that I'm seeing that's so high. I'm not sure that number needs to be where it is, and maybe we could find some number that just makes us feel a little bit more comfortable. So with that, I'll yield.
I'll perhaps wrap this up with a couple general comments. Asking questions, that's our job. I mean, we are the keepers of the purse. We did not like the FY25 experience, so we're nervous about that. Dealing with nervous people is never fun or easy. I personally have loved what I've heard about the Vacancy Review Board. And I mean, take it as a compliment, and I'm not kind of known for not worrying about things, but I don't worry about the Vacancy Review Board. It's clear to me you're doing a job, which is why we're going to resolve that it needs to stay until further notice. I will also say we have all enjoyed working with you, and ever since you took the position, things have been much better and much improved around here.
Thank you.
And we appreciate that.
Thank you.
I know we all have total faith in the Department of Finance, and the whole team, and Bala steps on a nickel, he can tell you if it's heads or tails.
CFO of the year, right?
And, well, I don't think an organization that got a AAA bond rating is in danger of forgetting everything we've ever learned or known about doing our jobs. Absolutely. So I have a lot more confidence in us than I do in some other governments or in the macro economy in which we have to survive. So I think we're all in a violent agreement that we're looking forward to getting this across the finish line. Hey, we approved the budget, in kind of record time and in record fashion, so that should, make you feel pretty good about where we sit and how we see things.
No, we certainly appreciate that, Councilmember, and I can say I've enjoyed working with all of you as well. I would my last question is, we are committed to doing a deeper dive before Monday and coming back with some additional abolishments. But I would ask that now that we know that we can do more abolishments, we will do that for Monday. But I would ask if you would allow us to put some things in place very similar to what you just described, Councilmember Hillis. I don't want to just go and wipe out things without having conversations with commissioners and really understanding the needs, making sure we are understanding and providing them what they're needed for their department. But I would ask we do some additional abolishments on Monday, but then we are given the time to do a much deeper dive on abolishments over the course of the next couple of months is what I would ask.
Well, this is an ongoing process. We're going to continue to partner on FY26 a lot longer and a lot more intimately than we did with FY25 or any previous budget, because we have to. And so, that's what we're going to do. The abolishments we don't want to see is in the form of a RIF.
Absolutely.
In a couple of months where we basically fire most of the people we spent the last 3 years hiring.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I'd still highly recommend the dark room.
Thank you, Councilmember Hillis.
Is that it?
No. Councilmember. Me. Yes.
I have budget amendments.
50,000?
We have budget amendments for Monday? See, Councilmember?
We didn't act on it.
No.
We don't have those in committee.
We're going to go back.
They voted?
Okay, so remember now, so one of our budget amendments added $50K to the Commission on Women's budget. So let's go back to item number 23, which is 25R 3510, resolution by Boone Bond Overstreet Hillis, amending FY26 to put in $50,000 for Commission on Women programming. So the motion is to file that since it's already incorporated in the budget. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Is there anything else? Ms. Bakhtiari.
Yeah, I wanted to congratulate the interns on a very eventful FEC meeting. Congratulations. You got to see Councilmember Shook at work, which is majority of the reason why people come in this building. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate Chairman Shook on being a newly appointed father-in-law. So congratulations. I heard you loved the wedding. And
Thank you. My GoFundMe page is on my website. And with that, we are adjourned.